My name is Jason Nelson, and I'm here to tell you my story on how a small decision had huge consequences and affected my life and the lives of those around me. I tell my story in the hopes that others can learn from my mistake. I grew up in Mitchell, South Dakota, East River. So it's a smaller town, 15,000 people, not much going on, so we had to be creative in our fun. And usually creativity involved the social lubricant of alcohol. And so that's kind of what we got into often. And we'd figure out ways to get it and stuff like that. So anyway, we'd go find a road somewhere, set up shop, have a few beers, throw on the radio, stuff like that. Stay out till curfew, pack it up, and go home. Now the thing of it is that conscience is an interesting thing. That when you do something wrong and you know it's wrong, the first time it's always the hardest. Because you fight your conscience, like, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that. But you push through and you're like, oh, it'll be fine, and you do it. And then everything turns out fine. So anyway, we would have a few beers and then get home. But the thing of it is that my car, my rules. So everybody pile in with me. I get behind the wheel, and I drive super good. Because I kind of have a heavy foot normally. But if I've had a couple, I slow down, I go the speed limit, stay between the lines, do everything perfect. I'm textbook. So, okay, I drop everybody off that night, go home, say goodnight to the folks, go downstairs, go to bed. No harm, no foul. So what I was all worried about with my conscience, that, well, it turned out fine. So then you get to the next weekend, and do it again. Next weekend after that, do it again, and to the point where it got easy. So actually got, for me, driving after having a few wasn't a big deal. It actually, what I say, it kind of seared my conscience to the point where my conscience didn't really try that hard. I've done fine. I've drove before. I was fine. No harm, no foul. Everything was fine. Everybody got home. No big deal. Fine. And so I went through high school and basically just did what I thought I was supposed to do. And I played football and everything like that, and just kind of had plenty of friends, and just thought I was, king of the pile. I don't know what I'm going to call that, but there's other ways to put that. But so I just thought I was fairly sure of myself. We'll put it that way. Others would say cocky, but anyway, I got out here to school. Okay, so I wanted to kind of give you a little history, kind of what brought me into college. So I got into college here, and there's plenty of opportunity. And then you add in the fact of no parents, no curfew, no rules. You set your own schedule. I had mine set up my first year, so I always had Thursdays off because I recover from Wednesday. So I just kind of, everybody realizes, yeah, they do the same. Okay, yeah, I understand where that laugh's come from. But the thing of it is that so I played that game too. Now, I kind of aced, or just kind of breezed through high school. I didn't try real hard, still made A's and B's, and I was fine. Now I get out here to go to school, and it's a different world. Now my first year, generals and stuff like that, I was fine. I could still have my go out and party every weekend, a couple times during the week, and started throwing a little hard alcohol in there because beer just wasn't doing it anymore, type of thing. And so I just kind of had that mentality that I could do it all. Okay. So my generals and stuff like that, I could still kind of sleep through them and do fine in the grades and get A's and B's and stuff like that. And the thing of it is that, sometimes if I was out working out of town or whatever, and then I had to get back to Vermilion, sometimes I'd grab a six-pack on the way back. Because I just had the mentality that drinking and driving wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a problem. It wasn't an issue for me. I could do it all. I can handle it all. I'm Superman, basically. And so then the thing of it is that I had that mentality, and one night, Friday night, my buddies and I were at Vermilion. We're kind of bored. We wanted to do something different. So we decided to go to Yankton, to a club in Yankton. I know Yankton has some really hip-hop clubs, but anyway, it was something different. Yankton, Vermilion with 5,000 people, the Yankton with, more. And so we went down there, so we found a little place, and we hung out there and drank all night, type of thing. And the thing of it is that my friends were guilty of the same sin, maybe not as bad as me, type of thing, as far as drinking and driving goes. So we shut the club down, and we got out of there, and we headed back to my truck. And everybody knew I was driving, and nobody said a thing. Nobody even second guessed it. It was just the way it was, because they grew up with me in high school. That's kind of always did. You know, they did the same thing I did. So they weren't going to say anything. You sure you're okay? You've had too much, type of thing. You should call a cab, blah, blah, blah. And the thing of it is that nobody had the audacity, or maybe had the right, they felt, to say anything. Now, they're the ones riding in my truck, so they're putting their lives in my hands, basically, and I've been sitting here drinking gin and tonics all night. Now, but that's the game we played, type of thing. So then we basically, you know, we got in my truck, and it's the craziest thing, because my two best friends from high school, they're both in my wedding, I was in both of theirs, type of thing, do anything for. They actually hopped in the back seat in the extended cab, and another friend of theirs hopped in the shotgun, which was kind of odd, because usually, you know, you give preferential treatment to your buddies or whatever. But anyway, he was in shotgun, so not 5 minutes out of town, you know, they're out cold and just, they're done for the night. And we eventually make it back to Vermilion, call the night, and go sleep it off. The next day we get up and we're kind of sharing war stories and stuff like that, and my buddy Mark that was in shotgun's like, you remember what happened last night? I'm like, well, lots of things happened. What are you talking about? He's like, well, you passed out at the wheel. I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. He's like, no, dude, seriously. So you're driving home, pass out the wheel. He reaches over to shotgun, grabs the steering wheel, drives for about 5 miles. I wake back up, grab the steering wheel, drive the rest of the way home. Now that freaked me out, because that's just like, what are you doing? None of us had seat belts. That pickup of mine is high centered, so that thing would have just done a flip in a heartbeat, and I could have just thrown every one of us in multiple directions that quick. That scared me pretty bad, okay? That was one of those opportunities in life to learn, to make an adjustment, to do something different, because obviously this is foolish. This is stupid. And so it did. It shook me up pretty bad and set me straight for about 2, maybe 3 weeks. Because unfortunately, I have a very thick head, stubborn personality. And so I kind of drifted back into my old ways. Okay, now I got back out here to school, and I felt I'd matured a little more, and you know, I turned 21, so it wasn't illegal anymore, so it wasn't quite as much fun, and I just felt that I've backed off to the point where it's okay. And everything's fine, I'm doing good, no problem. But the thing of it is that I still had that thing in the back of my mind that drinking and driving's okay. It's not a huge deal. It's, you know, you shouldn't do it, whatever, but if you're in a tight spot, you know, whatever. I still had that mentality. So if we'd go to a house party, or you know, go to the bars or something like that, or whatever, wherever, if I wanted to get home or get my friends home, I still have the mentality it's okay. Because, you know, yeah, I might do it once in a while now, but it's nothing like I used to do. I mean, I used to do it, you know, every other weekend or every other day and twice on the weekends. And so if I'm doing it once or twice a month, no big deal. I got this. So I had the mentality that it was still okay because, again, I had seared my conscience to the point where I didn't think about it. It wasn't a big deal. Okay? So I go on, and I was, you know, doing good in college and stuff like that, and making grades and getting through my classes and stuff like that. And right before December 14th, 2001, it was a Friday right before finals week. And you know how they load up a few tests before finals week's test, you know? So I had electrical engineering final, or class, and it was like the final before the final. And so I'd been studying for 2-3 weeks, and I've been just kind of racking my brain on this thing because I needed to, it was like 50% of your grade type of deal, and you know, study hard type of thing. So I really buckled down, did what I needed to do to get ready for this test, and went in and took this test, and felt I did pretty good on it. So I was pretty happy with myself. But if you would ask me my name, I would have probably had a hard time because I just put everything on that piece of paper type of thing. So I was spent. I was done. I had basically, in my mind, I had earned the right to go out and blow off some steam. I had a 3-day weekend before my finals kicked in, so I'm just going to go out and have some fun tonight. Okay? I had earned it. So I went out actually we had a bunch of stuff going on that day and stuff like that. So my buddy and I, Hoff were renting, actually I was renting a trailer from him and he owned it, but we were roommates. And I went back to our place, whatever, grabbed a bottle of Windsor and a 2-liter of Coke, threw it in a bag, and went over to a friend's house. Okay? Actually went over to the house. And I got there, and actually I got there about midnight. And just kind of sitting in the room watching a movie, no big deal, just kind of hanging out type of thing. Everybody in the room, everybody there was 21 or better, so nothing illegal or whatever. Not that that matters, but we were all just hanging out, no harm, no foul. And my buddy Hoff got there about 1:30 because he had to work, so he got off late, so he didn't get there till a little later. So when he got there, he made up another drink, and I made up a drink, I made up another one, and we just hung out, just like we've done 100 times before. Okay? Now we kind of just kept drinking that night and kind of harassing people that were coming home from the bars and stuff like that, and just kind of, I don't know, it was just kind of raided the kitchen, made some grilled cheese, you know, just kind of, just stupid stuff. I think we de-limbed the Christmas tree and hauled that outside for no good reason. It was funny at the time. Now thinking back, it's like, what are you thinking? Yeah, so we had a big Christmas tree, and it ended up being like a little bit on the top. That was all that was left. I forget none of it. But anyway, so that's what pretty much took up our night. Now, we realized it was getting really late when we started to see the sun come up through the windows. We're like, okay, this is ridiculous. I was 23 at the time, so we're, you know, old men type of deal. And it's time to call us a night. So we head downstairs, and I still remember it clear as day. My buddy Hoff's like, you okay to drive? And without even a split-second hesitation, not even a hesitation at all, yeah, I'm fine. So he tossed me the keys. It's his car. He tossed me the keys. I grab them, and off we go. Now, I know everybody here makes a lot better decisions than I do when you're under the influence, because you make great decisions when you've been drinking. And so you never have any, you know, regrets, because that's, you know, you always get told stuff the next day, and it's just not good. But anyway, so we walk outside and hop in his car, and we take off. Now, from where we were to where we were going, about 2 miles. Not a big deal. But we had beer in the car. We were still kind of hyperactive, type, you know, dumb, basically, and we just didn't want to go home. So let's go somewhere else. Makes a lot of sense. Made sense at the time. Now it makes absolutely no sense, because a lot of things you can't explain when you're in the midst of it. But anyway, we hop in his car, we take off, and we start heading out. Left to go home, right to go somewhere else. Well, let's go somewhere else. So we head off, and we end up on the interstate heading off east towards New Underwood. Get to New Underwood, like, you know, and I'm really sneaky and smart, and I know how to keep a low profile, and so the cops don't get me, type of thing. At least, I think. And so I figured that, well, I'll get off the interstate and head on the back roads. So I hop on New Underwood Road, heading north, which is a windy, hilly gravel road. Okay? Now, I learned to drive on gravel roads, so no big deal. And we just head off, and about 20, 30 minutes in, I look over, my buddy Hoff's got the seat back. He's out cold. So now I'm out in the middle of nowhere, going, I don't know where, just kind of lost, basically, and don't know what I'm doing. So I'm like, okay, this is dumb. I'm just going to find a convenience store, get him some coffee, we'll be okay, and then get back home. So anyway, I head for about another half hour and head up and hitting Union Center. Now, I don't know if anybody knows where Union Center is. All right, okay, we got one. Yeah, that's about right. See, that's how big a town it is. So there's like, it has basically one convenience store, and I don't think it has a stoplight. But, and so anyway, there's a convenience store in the corner there. So I pull right up front, and I walk in, and I started asking the gal some questions like, where's this and that? And she's just kind of giving me this attitude and a little look, and I'm like, okay, so, you know, me being in the state that I was, I give a little attitude back, and then I realized that, okay, she probably thinks I'm drunk or been drinking. And so she's going to do the right thing and call the cops on me. So I just said, you know what, forget it. I turned around and walked out. I was just like, I don't want to get busted. I don't want to have to go through this. Now at this point, I just want to get home. This is stupid. Just get home. Okay, so I hop on Highway 34 heading west back towards Sturgis, and I get back to the Sturgis exit, hop on the interstate, head back towards Rapid. Easiest part of this trip, Sturgis, Rapid City, 20 minutes will be home, this will all be over with. About 5 minutes outside of Sturgis, I was involved in the car accident. Now initially, in my mind, you go into kind of self-protect mode, blame everybody else but yourself. And what I thought is that, you know, some car hit another car and I got kind of caught up in it. Because I was able to keep control of my car, pull the car to the side of the road, not much damage on it, but, okay. And all I could think about, and by the way, my buddy Hoff's wide awake now, so we get out of the car, look at the damage, try to figure out what's going on. Now there's another car back in the median, and then there's our car. And at this point I realized, man, I'm gonna finally get that DUI. You know, I figured I'd always get a DUI for like a broken taillight or broken headlight or get caught in a speed trap or something stupid like that. But I've always played the game. I've never had a DUI. And through high school, through college, all that. Never got in trouble. So I figured once I got that DUI, that would kind of steer me straight and make me fly straight, type of do the right thing type of deal. Think a little more. So basically I got to the realization that I was basically coming up on a DUI. That's what I was going to get, and that's the way it was. So I had accepted that reality, basically. And sure enough, the highway patrolman came over to me and asked me back to his car, and it was really windy out that day, so we sat in his car, and he's like, you know, where were you last night? What were you doing? And kind of went right into what were you drinking? Where were you at type of deal. And because he knew I'd been drinking. He wasn't stupid, and you could smell it on me, especially inside of a small car. And so I didn't try to play a whole lot of games with him. I knew I was busted, you know, and sure enough, he arrested me for DUI. Now, he put me in the back seat, and we were still in Meade County, which is Sturgis, so we had to turn around and go back because I was facing towards Rapid. Okay, so we turn around and head back, and now I'm an engineering major, and I can count, okay? In my mind, I thought there had to be 3 cars, me being one of the 3. Now, when I turn around and head back, the car I was driving is 1. The car in the median is 2. I can't see that 3rd car. I can't find it. So I asked the officer, you know, where's the 3rd car? He's like, well, we'll talk about that when we get back to the station. Okay, you're the boss. We get back to the station, get fingerprinted and ID'd and blood drawn and all that kind of stuff. And so I asked him again, you know, like, where was the 3rd car? He's like, well, there was no 3rd car. What actually happened is I came up behind an S10 Trailblazer, hit it in the rear, which sent off keister, and into the median, you know, at 70, 75 miles an hour, and the median where it rolled 2.5 times. And not side to side, more front to back. I'm like, okay, well, the next obvious question is like, how many people in the car? He's like, well, there's just 1. I'm like, okay, well, the ambulances are there, everything was, you know, under control. They had it all figured out. So the next obvious question is, well, how is he? He's like, well, he was pronounced dead on arrival. You're being charged with vehicular homicide. And so that's the start of where I'm at now. So I went from knowing everything, having everything figured out, having an understanding of who I was, where I was, and why I was there, to having no idea what my world was. Everything was totally upside down and inverted. So as I sat in that drunk tank and the alcohol wore off, the reality of what just happened set in. Because I drank and drove that night, Mr. Richards paid with his life because of me. Mr. Richards died of blunt head trauma because of me. And you don't want to be me, okay? So, you know, I had no idea how much, you know, what the consequences of my actions were, what was the deal, and you know, I was asking questions, and I called my dad, or called my folks, you know, and my mom, of course, was very upset. And I talked to my dad, and he's like, well, son, you better start praying. That's basically, I was in a world of hurt, okay? They came down from Rapid, drove all the way down to Sturgis, or from Mitchell down to Sturgis, bailed me out of jail. I was released into their custody. We started the whole legal process. Now, part of that, now, vehicular homicide carries a maximum of 15 years in the state pen. Now, I'm just a little, you know, college boy looking at hard time in the state pen. We'll come to find out later, you know, which should be on the Hill, where sex offenders, child molesters, rapists, different type of low-end murders type of thing. I have to say that, but so that's spending that amount of time where I'd be looking at. So anyway, we started the legal process, and it really was tough because every day that passed, the guilt got worse and worse and worse and worse. It's basically like throwing 100 pounds on your back every day. It just got heavier and heavier and heavier to deal with and to bear. I went to the school counselor here and was talking with her and kind of came up with the idea, well, maybe I can start sharing my story with other people so they won't make the same stupid mistake I did. So we thought about that, sounded a good idea, and so I started talking to small groups, 5, 10, 15. And the thing is that allowing me to see where there's some good that can be out of a bad situation helped me a lot. And so basically it was almost kind of therapeutic in a strange way, but knowing that there's a silver lining or some good that can come out of it. And basically through the trial process, the state's attorney was feeling nice and was going to give me 10 years instead of 15. Okay? So put yourself right where you're at right now, and now start imagining the possibility of spending the next 10 years in the state penitentiary. That's what I was looking at. And seriously, because people that in my situation, they're looking to make examples of because they're cracking down in the drinking and driving, which they should, and I agree with. So anyway, we started the legal process, and I was doing presentations and stuff like that. I was looking at 10 years. And then the Richards family came along and petitioned the state's attorney to give me a second chance. They actually petitioned the state's attorney to give me 6 months state time, or no, county time, which is Meade County Jail, Pennington County type of thing, with an additional 10 days to be served 1 day on the anniversary of the accident, 10 years of probation, whole list of conditions type of thing, and that was an absolute godsend. When you're looking at 10 years, and the family of the victim comes in and says, well, let's give them a second chance. So we did all the legal stuff, got to the court proceedings and stuff like that. And it's my belief the judge wanted me to see where I should be for a very long time. And before I get to sentencing, I had to stand up. I didn't have to. I had the opportunity to stand up and address the family. From here to about maybe the back row is where they sat. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do, was to stand up and address them, And so I did apologize numerous times, as best I could, kind of a shaky voice, and accepted full complete responsibility. And that accepting responsibility was probably the biggest reason that they even thought about giving me a second chance. If I would have tried to play the games, like sun was in my eyes, wind was on, it was a heavy crosswind, whatever, try to blame it on something else, they would have just kind of laughed at me and said, see you later. So anyway, the judge ended up sentencing me to 90 days in the state pen. The additional 45 days be served in 5-day blocks for the course of 9 years. 26 conditions of probation. If I violate any one of those conditions of probation, I go back for 15 years, like that. One of those provisions of my probation was to graduate from School of Mines. And before I got there, after sentencing, it was at the beginning of summer, at May 24th, something like that. I went to prison that day, spent the next 3 months in the state pen, mainly spent 2 weeks in maximum security until you're processed. And you just, in a 6-foot by 10-foot cell, and you never know who your cellmate's going to be, so it's always interesting to see what kind of personality you're going to get. But you're on 23-hour lockdown, so you're basically in that 6-foot by 10-foot cell for 23 hours a day. And you get out for meals and a shower, that's about it. So I was classified on minimum security risk, went to Yankton, spent the rest of my 2.5 months there, got out 2 weeks before school started, went back to school that year, finished in May of '03. And I've been given presentations like this ever since. And it's very important to the family that I'm here. It's very important for me that I'm here, because it's, again, there's some good that can come out of a bad situation. And basically the best way to look at me is an anti-role model. You don't do what I've done. You don't want to be me. You don't want to be here giving this presentation. You want to put your family through what I put my family through, what the Richards family, what I put them through. You don't want to make the same mistake I did, okay? So, not to mention that, but even a DUI make it much more difficult to get a job. If your field is very competitive, and so if you're looking for a job and you have a DUI on your record, and it's apples and apples as far as who you're comparing against or who they're comparing you against, and you have a DUI or even a misdemeanor, they're going to go with the other person because this other person looks more responsible. So even a DUI can be detrimental. Not that you can't overcome, but it can be detrimental. And I had a felony, okay? So it wasn't even worth trying for me. As far as having a felony record, that looks very irresponsible or serious. And so I basically started doing my own thing out of college, and so far I'm still doing that now. So I work for myself. But and I've been fortunate in that. But so even little mistakes can really have life-altering consequences. That night, yeah, I'm okay to drive. Started a whole sequence of events that put me here today. Okay, so the little tiny decisions can make huge consequences. Every one of you has a house phone, everyone has cell phones. Do a buddy system, one person drive, or one person be the sober driver. There's plenty of times I was a sober guy and I had more fun being the sober guy than the drunk guy because I took pictures. Okay? It's a really easy way to get a free meal or a free dinner or something like that. So be smarter than I was. Don't make the same mistakes I did. And then just so you know, I've completed my 10 years of probation. I'm officially off paper, so I'm no longer technically a felon. So I've completed that 10-year process. But the thing of it is that it'll never leave me just because I'm off paper. It doesn't really mean much, you know what I mean? So again, don't do what I've done. Be smarter than I was. Every one of you here is more intelligent than I am because you have more information than I did, or at least took seriously. So please make better choices than I did and don't make the same mistake, and be careful of every action you take because it can have life-altering consequences. Okay? Thanks very much for listening. I appreciate it. There's 1,000 different choices I could have made that night. I could have slept on the couch. I could have slept on the floor. I could have walked home. I mean, it was 2 miles basically. I could have had a cab ride that night. Would have cost $10 probably. I could have made 1,000 choices that night. That would have been better.